being in this ambush and now having to go into survival mode showcases just the dynamics of the two and the dynamics of this series where yeah, they can have this peaceful journey and then boom, all of a sudden they're in an ambush, they're fighting for their lives. And this is the first time for Ellie that she is in a situation where the 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 villain is a human. It is someone who is real, who is not infected, and she is now there's a lot more consequence to what's going to happen.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast after show of The Last of Us HBO. My name is Shahbaz and I am joined here by my fellow clickers because I really want to see them do their clicker dance and clicker moves again selfishly. Daniel and Anthony. Daniel, we'll start with you first because you have you're the reigning champ of the clicker dance. Not sure what that one is. Is that the clicker
That's
dance
the
now?
new evolved clicker. That's like
The-
every episode these clickers are evolving.
They're
And
learning.
now they know how to dance.
They're learning their
to
ways.
dance.
Yeah. What was the sound that used to make those the clicker? Just for one more time, for old time's sake.
Ooh, ooh, ooh,
Oh
ooh.
wow!
Is
Yeah,
that it?
you've
No?
insulted most clickers, I think, that are listening to the podcast.
No, the clicker noises
and
like
they can hear the podcast really well.
they can hear it from very far away.
Yeah,
They can
people
hear it from very far
Yeah,
away.
we're Dolby Atmos to most clickers right now, which is great.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
yeah.
great. Good for them. Good for them.
And joined
Let them
by
dance.
the friendly clicker, as Anthony likes to say. Anthony, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. This is my clicker. I do the Vogue.
Oh, he's voguing.
Oh, you're
I'm voguing.
Madonna's voguing.
Yeah.
Ah.
I'm just gonna keep doing this until you walk away.
Oh, I think most
Until you
people
stop the video.
most people won't even attack that clicker. They'll be like, you know what? It's too good of a Vogue. Let's leave it be. I'm
Leave
gonna
that
go
guy.
my way.
Leave
Leave
that
that guy.
clicker
Leave him alone.
needs his own show. He needs his Vogue show.
The Vogue. I want that now. I want a reality show based in the Last of Us universe, just based on the clickers, just kind of like almost The Office style. That's what I
Yep.
want. Well, again, thank you for joining us. This is the after show for The Last of Us on HBO and Crave if you're here in Canada, or if you're in the UK, Sky TV has it, and that's the only places that I know as well. So I'm going to stop listing all the places in the world that are showing the show, but it's an HBO show at the end of the day. We've been covering the last couple episodes. We're now on episode 4, and we've been doing this little after show, talking about our thoughts, our theories, where we're coming from. We were huge fans of the games. We play the games often. And also, if you go back to a couple months ago, you may see a little review, a video, a whole conversation about the part 1 remake that was just done on the PS5. And also, our whole kind of encapsulation of the first episode that we did with our friend over at Mobile Syrup, Brad Shankar, also is up on all of our podcast feeds. So don't forget to check all that out. If you're new here, welcome. Stay tuned because you're in for a wild ride. We drop a new episode every single Monday, or sometimes throughout the rest of the week. We'll have news, interviews, reviews, a bunch of crazy things. Daniel, I'm gonna kick it to you in a second here to kind of just list off some of the most amazing guests that we've had in the past couple of weeks. Even like I don't even want to go that far back. Like you could go back only 3 weeks, and it's a treasure trove of guests that we've had. But before I do that, make sure you're following us at the Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Letterboxd, anywhere we are. You are there too, following us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hi, hello, this is what we look like. We don't look like clickers, but we are nice and smooth thanks to our friends over at Manscaped. All that information will also be down below. I had to pause there for a second because of how smooth my face felt there. Like I really had to take that in for a second. I'll be honest with you. It was.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that in a second as well.
Talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below as well. Let us know what you thought of this episode. If you're a fan of the game, if you're new to the series, what are your thoughts on it? Daniel, let me kick it over to you for all the announcements and all the good stuff.
So Shay, you mentioned some special guests that we've had on the show. And we've had Cornucopia, incredible special guest join us.
Is that a part of the virus, the cornucopia virus, the cordyceps virus?
Cornucopia of the cordyceps, exactly.
Yes.
Just in January alone, we had Mary McCartney. We had the director and producer of the film Missing. We had the cast of Extraordinary join us. We had the cast of Shrinking, which is an incredible show on Apple TV Plus, including Brett Goldstein. You know him as Roy Kent from Ted Lasso. Bill Lawrence, the creator, Krista Miller, Lakita Maxwell, and Neil Goldman. We had the cast of Darby and the Dead, and we have a lot more special guests coming. So you don't want to miss anything that's going on here in the movie podcast. If we go back to December, oh boy, we had the cast of Avatar join us. We had the cast of Willow. We spoke to Palm Clementif, the cast of Mythic Quest. We've had an incredible I think embarrassment of riches when it comes to special guests here on the movie podcast, and we want to keep that going. We got us one already. We got some lined up for February already. We're not going to tell you who it is, but stay tuned. If you like big movies, you don't want to miss this. I promise you.
Or even small movies.
Well, well, well. Look who came to play, Mr. Smoothbeard himself. Shay, how did you get your beard so smooth?
Is that a pirate's name? You know, he was not a
Oh,
very popular
Smoothbeard.
pirate. You know, it was Blackbeard and Redbeard.
He was liked among his friends.
He was liked among his friends because he was the most groomed of pirates. And I'm sure he was the most groomed of pirates because he used Manscaped products, which, again, you know, huge shout out to our friends over at Manscaped for providing us this beautiful code to give you 20% off their products right now. Put in movie pod, sorry, not the movie pod, but all the information is down below. Forget what I'm saying. Just go read that. That's your homework, because why not save some money? You know, Valentine's Day is coming around, ladies. And ladies, if you're listening, hi, how you doing? Save some money. You know, look at your men. They're probably all hairy.
Save some money and save your balls. Simple as that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're probably looking at your man right now. He's probably listening to us and you're like, wow, you're the hairiest SOB I've ever seen in my life. Wow. And I wish I could shave you. And this Valentine's Day, you may be able to do that.
You may be able to do that. Like Shay said, MoviePod is our promo code. Our show note below have all the information and more. And we'll have an ad later in the show talking more about how we use Manscaped. Don't worry. It's not just us talking about our balls. We talk about so much more. So stay tuned for that. That's all I got, though, in announcements.
What's love if you can't shave your guy? You know?
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have cut. Maybe I shouldn't have cut to you.
That should be on a Valentine's Day card. What is love if you can't shave your man?
With some of the excess hair, of course. Yeah.
Manscaped might steal that idea. So you know what? You might want to get in touch with them quickly, Anthony, or you may not want to touch anybody at all. So that's another thing you can do too. But let's talk a little bit about this show. You know, we're kind of, we last left off gearing up with one of my personal favorite episodes. I know that you guys love this episode as well. Episode 3 was such an emotional ride that we kind of got to go on, and it was one of also the most different episodes from the game. You know, we got to see a lot more about certain characters that we either rarely ever saw in the game, or just maybe didn't see at all. So there's a lot that kind of happened in that. And then we come to episode 4, which, you know, brings a lot of great elements from the game over, but also introduces us to a character that wasn't in the game. And I can't wait to kind of dive into that and more about some of the subtle changes they've done and how they've kind of built up and what this could possibly mean for The Last of Us Part 2. Obviously, we're not going to go into Last of Us Part 2 spoilers from the game, but there will be sometimes subtle references that we'll make because we could be setting up the future of the Last of Us world now that we have that hindsight of what's going to be coming. So in this episode, obviously, we're kind of changing things up. We're back on the road. We're in a truck. We're no longer walking because, man, walking is terrible. I'm going to be honest. I do much prefer driving personally as a person. I much prefer driving, and we're in this nice little, you know, Chevy truck. We're going across country. We get over to Kansas, which is kind of where the game is not really taking place. And you kind of go to Pittsburgh and all that area, but here we're going to Kansas. But before we jump to that, let's start off with the beginning of this episode. You know, we start with Joel kind of siphoning some gas, and one of my favorite moments of the episode happens right here, where Ellie kind of asks, like, "Oh, like, do you know what you're doing here?" And Joel has absolutely no idea, so he's trying to explain how to siphon gas, and she kind of calls him out in his BS. And there's a bit of an awkward moment, but here's a moment from the game that I absolutely love. Ellie pulls out a very specific book here. You know, it's no pun intended. You know, volume 2, spelled TOO. And here we go. She starts to kind of talk all about these little puns, and she's throwing them out at Joel. And Anthony, I'd love to kick it over to you to kind of talk about this opening sequence of this episode and how and what you felt about it.
If we could go back just a little bit, I think the opening sequence with Ellie doing her impersonation of Taxi Driver is interesting because it says a lot about her character, and she knows actually how to use a gun. She's been in the QZ where they've been training her how to use weapons, so she knows how to like cock it, how to make sure there's a bullet in the chamber and all that stuff. So she looks like she's ready to shoot, which is interesting because a couple of minutes later, you will see her do some stuff. But yeah, the no pun intended by Will Livingston shows up, and you can see it on Pedro Pascal's face. Joel's face that he is not having it. He just, and this just like the game, he just hates that book. But it's this endearing moment between the two that will grow and will grow more and more. And the book is just this kind of like this iceberg between them. Because at this point in time, like Joel just is treating her like cargo. And she's just like, she is cargo, but she also has feelings, and she's a girl. She has these things that she wants to know about the person who's traveling, she's traveling with. So she wants to break the ice. No pun intended. Great book, great jokes. You can see it in Joel's face. He's not impressed, but he will be by the end. That's the
There's
fun.
like a slight like impressiveness. Like he's got like not a smirk, but you can tell like it's kind of chipping away at him.
Yeah, I think it's my impression. Like if someone were to
Yes.
like tell me a joke, I'd be like, no.
It's
I'm
it's
gonna
how
kill you.
Daniel and I
Oh,
talk to you, and you usually like
yeah.
when I was watching this episode, I'm sure that I felt like Ellie and Daniel, probably you as well, when we're talking to Anthony.
Oh yeah,
100%.
easily. Whenever I see Anthony siphoning gas from someone, I'm always trying to tell him
Well,
jokes.
always,
And
let's
he's
throw it
always
back
This
a
day and
couple
age?
episodes.
yeah,
Well, not a couple episodes, probably a couple years ago, or our main episode. Anthony wanted to siphon the movies from the theaters, if you remember, if you recall that.
Yeah, it's true.
that
It
was
is
a
true.
that's a throwback for
It's
sure.
a
I
real
remember that.
very
throwback.
true.
Yes.
One thing that I took away from this whole adventure right now, because they are on this journey through Kansas City, or getting to Kansas City, is like there are little things that are mentioned involving things that have happened in the past. Like Joe mentions tanks and choppers scattered around, and he says there was we were fighting the wrong enemy. So there kind of seems like there was maybe a civil war that happened between maybe the army and the people. There's
Yeah,
little things
definitely.
like that you start to put together. And then there's another part of the game that's introduced, which is Bill's gay porn mag, which Ellie
Yeah,
happens to come across right at the
I'm
in the
so
in
happy
the
this
back of
joke made
the
into the show.
So
yeah.
happy.
She comes
Yeah.
and literally they even got the same dude who was on the cover of the game to be in on the magazine cover, which is so funny. She has exact same lines, and it's such a funny moment because it's like, whoa, how do you walk around with that thing? And it's just she's
Why
she's
are the pages
clearly
stuck together?
she's
Like,
clearly like it's a bit with her, and she knows what it's all about. But
She
you can
knows what
see
she's
Joel's
doing.
face. He's just like, but no, you can't look, no. And she's like, sayonara,
Oh,
boys.
you kind of wonder, like, did Joel ever have to have, the sex talk with Sarah? Sarah was really
Yeah.
young, and Joel probably never got the chance to do that. And so you're seeing Ellie, who clearly is a lot smarter for her age. She has so much more wealth of knowledge, growing up the way she does. And Joel references that a lot. He's like, you shouldn't have to do these things. You shouldn't have to experience this, because there's that protective father nature of him. But I also love that she just literally throws the book out of the car, the same way that it kind of happens in the game. Daniel, what about your thoughts on that opening sequence for this episode?
I love the opening sequence of this episode because it's so different from everything that we've gone so far. The first episode of the show really dealt with, okay, let's set the scene in this 1968 that we know what's coming, but we're going to like get everyone immersed in the science in this world. Second episode, terrifying opening, where we're talking about, what, dropping a bomb in Jakarta, this virus is happening, this is the end of the world. And then episode 3, what I really love is that we got to really learn who Bill was right off the gate, and we kind of saw what he was all about. What this episode does so well is I think it really starts putting us in the perspective of Ellie. And I love that she has a gun. She's kind of playing with it because Ellie, at the end of the day, as we know from the games, again, no future spoilers to the game itself or the story, but she has a lot of hate inside of her. And, we think about in episode 2 where she's with Tess and with Joel, and, she has a sandwich, she has a big ass sandwich, and she asks for a gun. She wants a gun. She wants to carry a gun. And they're like, can I she's like, can I have a gun? And they're like, no. She's like, fine, I'll just throw my sandwich at them. And now that she finally has like the secret gun, I think she feels that little bit of power, that little bit of that safety, where she was very much at the hands of Joel and Joel protecting her. But now that she has her own gun, she kind of has that little bit of a power fantasy as well, where she could hold her own, she could take care of herself. And I really love the direction of Jeremy Webb in the introduction of the scene, where it's just Ellie like playing and doing her best, like, taxi driver, playing with the gun and doing that. I think it's a really great way to start the episode, because we're really starting to get into the mind of Ellie. And then here we go, of course, when we get the pun book, like, this is another thing that this show, um, is just nailing. It's everything that we love about the game. And yeah, some of it is one for one from what we've seen in the game, but others it really is an expansion, and and taking things its own way of telling the story. And I think, even just changing things up, going to Kansas City, going to different places, you're getting the story across. And I'm thinking, 4 episodes deep into the show, it's nailing it, and I'm just loving the ride so far.
Yeah, and speaking of ride, we continue this ride in the car. They have to pull over. It's getting late at night. They kind of go into a forest, and they're going to bed. And Ellie's still trying her best to kind of chip away at Joel. And I was thinking about this scene because obviously, when you're camping, especially in this era right now that we're kind of in, where the whole world is completely gone, all really Ellie has is her books. And the show makes that change of 2013 to 2003 is when everything kind of happens, and that's really before the dawn of major portable electronics. So you kind of wonder, like, if this show had taken place 2013 and beyond, like, would that element still have survived? Would Ellie kind of have like a Game Boy on her or something a bit more modern to kind of still keep and it would still be running and up and working? Because 2003 really didn't have much. People were still using really dumb phones, and I'm using air quotes when I say that because they really weren't smartphones back then, and people didn't have all the technology that we kind of had. So really curious to see like what would have happened. What I also found interesting is that when they're driving in the car after they kind of get up in the morning, and Ellie smells coffee for the first time, you think this smells like shit. Like, I don't know why you like drinking this. I'm kind of in the same boat as Ellie. I don't get coffee. I'm not a big coffee person. So shout out to all the people that, like, 99% of the world that loves coffee. I'm so glad you guys love it. It's not for me.
The three of us all don't drink coffee, which is
No,
interesting.
maybe that's why
Yeah.
we're all such perky
I drink
individuals.
espressos.
I don't mind an
Yes.
espresso. I don't mind, but I honestly I've never gone to Starbucks to grab a coffee or anything like that. The most is like a fancy latte, but that's only for flavor, but never a coffee.
It's interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting. Now that
We
we've
should
lost all
start.
of our audience because we're coffee people, not
I-
anti-coffee people. But
Just start.
what can you do?
Just do it.
Why don't you do it?
Why don't you do it? I asked you first.
Mm.
I don't have to do it. I asked you. You do the
It's true.
coffee. I'll do something else that we don't do together.
Okay, we'll find something. Maybe I'll try it. I probably
Hang
won't,
out
though.
together. Maybe hang out
Maybe-
together. 'Cause
no,
Anthony does
it's too
the
We
far.
podcast,
will.
yeah.
It's too
Too far. Too far.
I gotta siphon some gas. I gotta siphon the gas.
Siphon some gas, 100%. That's
Yeah.
the way to do it.
But what's interesting is while they're in the car, and speaking of coffee, the reason why I bring this up is they talk about Starbucks. They talk about Starbucks still being in the quarantine zone. And I found that so interesting. I'm like, wow, of all things, Starbucks is still pushing itself through. Like, then I started to wonder, oh, what other businesses are still kind of around? Like, is Blockbuster still a thing? Like, did Blockbuster survive? Like, is this still a thriving business? Because hey, people probably still need to rent movies and watch entertainment, and that probably is still a viable thing out there. So you got to wonder about that, right?
I'm curious to like, what's like. I know the world has ended. This is 20 years after like basically the world has ended, but you got to wonder: have any stores out there like is it possible for a store to survive this long? You know what I mean? Maybe there's a Radio Shack out there that's still going strong in the States.
Like
Probably
they're not they're just like mimics of these stores, right? Like they're not. The money doesn't even exist in this world. Like it's zero. Like
It's
remember
true.
that scene where it's like, yeah, that money is worth
It's
nothing.
useless. Yeah.
It's useless.
Yeah, it's like ration cards and stuff.
But
like
I guess
that,
it's
right?
like nostalgic for them. It's like, oh yeah, we used to have this store. Let's recreate a Starbucks in our QZ. Let's recreate a
Yeah.
Toys R Us or I don't know, was like Chick-fil-A around back then? I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know when.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's recreate a Chick-fil-A, but it's like that jerky shit that they eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jerk
It's
fillet.
jerk. I think a lot of people call Chick-fil-A that.
Yeah.
But this is also where we get that line, where Anthony, you kind of referenced it. She's like talking about family and everything, and Joel says to her, "No, you're just cargo. That's it. You're cargo, and that's kind of it."
So mean.
So mean. I've said that to you guys while driving before too. We're going to a screening, and you guys are like, "Oh man, we're such good friends." I'm like, "You guys are cargo," and you're like, "Whoa, that's
We're not family.
like weird
Okay,
reaction,
okay.
Shay. We're not gonna go watch this movie together." I'm like, "No, you're cargo." But here's where we kind of get to Kansas, and this is where the big change up in the game kind of happens. But the elements of this game still kind of remain. So Joel has to kind of get through. We're driving around. And one of the things that everybody noticed here was we're driving past a movie theater, and there's a marquee still on the theater, and it's showing Underworld and Matchstick Men, and I thought that was really really interesting. So shout out to 2003, I guess, because as I recall, those movies were 2003 September ish. Is Daniel? I think
They
you're probably
were.
looking it
You're
up,
right.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Matchstick Men was September 2003, and Underworld was also
And Matchstick
Underworld
Men is
was
about a
September 19th, 2003.
father
about
daughter
con men.
relationship,
Yeah, con men and father daughter
and
relationship. There you go.
Underworld is kind of like horror-ish too. So
Monsters.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Because in the game they always reference this Wolf at Dawn game, or there's always the posters
Right.
of those movies. Sorry, so Underworld totally makes sense, and it's funny how it works out that way. Like the timing of everything is very particular, I guess you could say.
Yes.
But here's where we get that hunter confrontation that we kind of got in the game, where oh man, I'm hurt, and you can see Joel immediately being like, oh, I know what's going on
Nah.
here, whereas Ellie's
Nah.
like, hey, I think we should help this guy. So, before we kind of get to that, Daniel, tell me about this part. Like, what are your thoughts about this scene, this moment, this whole confrontation? We get the car crash and everything up until that moment where maybe let's just say Ellie kind of saves Joel.
So here's the thing. I love that Joel recognizes that this is bullshit right away. Like Joel right away, he's like, no. And he tells Ellie, I've been on both sides of these things. Like this is bullshit. This is not what it appears to be. And he drives, chaos ensues, and I love that it turns into a shootout where Joel is just taking guys down, and Ellie, he tells Ellie, get into that hole, go hide there. And when it comes to Joel's life being saved, Ellie does it, and you could tell that Joel was happy that she saved his life, but you could also tell that he was just like, give me the gun, why do you have this type thing. So I love that there's like you see that on Pedro Pascal's face so well, where it's that dual emotion of just like, thank you, I'm glad you did this, but why were you able to do this. And I think that was a really cool way that they played that. And it's different again. Like when we compare it back to the game, the game takes place in Pittsburgh at this point. We're in Kansas City. It's an interesting change up in the dynamic of it, but it plays out very very similar. And I love that we also learn that Joel has been like injured before, right? And I think with Ellie at this point too, um, when she shoots someone, that's also something that changes within her, right? She shoots somebody, she sees somebody begging for their life, and Joel then kind of takes over and finishes the act. But this is the pinnacle point in Ellie's character. This is a crucial part of who she is and where she's going to go in the future. This is the moment that I think changes her.
Support for the movie podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's performance package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 7 million men worldwide who have trusted Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code MoviePod at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 14 million balls.
You know what I didn't know I needed, but I needed is an LED light on my shaver.
Oh my God.
Like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
there is darkness, especially around that area. It works so well. You can really pinpoint all the hairs, and you're like, okay, I got this point, because hair kind of like starts to mesh, and you really don't see it properly. But with this LED light, it's super bright, and you can get everything precision cut.
It's a 4000K LED spotlight, so you are literally putting a spotlight to your genitals down there to make sure you're treating them as you should.
The skin safe proprietary technology that they use for the lawnmower is really good. Like I was always a little hesitant going down there, and then I felt safe. I felt like there was protection there.
Manscaped just makes it so easy to choose a tool, whatever you're using, be it the beard trimmer, the lawnmower, the weed whacker, and it just feels like there is like this accessibility to it that I absolutely love.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code MoviePod at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code MoviePod. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job at Manscaped.
Your balls will thank you.
Your balls will thank you.
Your balls will thank you. Absolutely. I mean, this is that moment, like you said, Daniel, that is that pinnacle moment for her. When you even kind of cut back over to Ellie, you see tears. You see a single tear kind of going down her eyes, and you also mentioned about the injury that he kind of has, because when the guy kind of sneaks up on Joel from the back door, who's just a kid, and I think you can hear him saying like, "My mom's just over here. Like, you take me to her and patch me up, and
Yeah.
you take my knife," and like it's kill or be killed at this point, really. And Joel's got to do what he got to do to survive and protect Ellie. And you hear that he's like, all the shooting really has caused my ear to kind of go out here. But it's a very similar moment that we kind of got into the game. The major difference that we kind of don't see at this point is we don't see the extreme gruesomeness of what's going on. And I say that because in the game you're seeing that they're capturing tourists, kind of chopping them up and taking everything from them. But you do kind of see that when they're going to the village, there are people being played into the city. There are people that are burnt and their corpses kind of lying over there. So you wonder, is that what they're kind of insinuating, or is it just really, really messed up? Because we are going to get to something in a few minutes here, but I do want to get Anthony's thoughts on this moment as well. There's this laundromat shootout and how the characters progressed.
Everything that led up to this moment since the ending of episode 2 has been a peaceful journey for them. They've gone to Bills. They didn't really interact with a lot of things. They've drove a couple of miles across land and not really have to deal with, you know, infected or now people. So this extreme switchover of being in this ambush and now having to go into survival mode showcases just the dynamics of the two and the dynamics of this series where yeah, they can have this peaceful journey and then boom, all of a sudden they're in an ambush, they're fighting for their lives. And this is the first time for Ellie that she is in a situation where the 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 villain is a human. It is someone who is real, who is not infected, and she is now. There's a lot more consequence to what's going to happen. And then you're right, Daniel. Like this is going to lead to her character and the building of her character and what she will eventually become. But there is a time where she's so innocent and she is experiencing all these things for the first time, other than infected, and it doesn't sit right with her. She's okay with killing infected, but is she okay with killing innocent people? And that poor kid who was pleading and crying, and you can see it in her face. Like throughout this whole journey, Ellie's experiencing and is literally gathering all this information. On her ride there, you can see it in her face. She's like, this is a whole new world for her. She's seeing things that she's never seen before: roads, buildings, bridges. Now people who are now against her or who want to kill her. It's a whole nother level of her character buildup. And this particular episode is a lot of character development. But yeah, the shock on Ellie's face that she knows that Joel has to, take this guy out. It just showcases the performance and how strong it is. It showcases how dangerous this world is. It showcases like there is survival. You have to survive it no matter what. And even though this poor kid was calling for his mom, like you don't know that. You don't know your surroundings. And especially for Joel, which we'll learn later on, not everyone's good. He
Yeah,
wasn't
no,
he wasn't all the time.
yeah, you had to do things to survive. In those 20 years that we see from 2003 to 2023, Joel did what he did to get to be where he is, right? He's alive for a reason, and you have to do some things that you're not proud of. And I'm sure when push comes to shove, it is what it is at that point. And you see that moment, especially in episode 1, where the lady's like, it's a kid, I can't do it. And Joel, with almost no remorse, just takes that kid's body and throws it into the fire. But let's move on to the next, the kind of the major last segment of this episode, and that's the introduction of a new character, played by Melanie Linsky, Kathleen. Kathleen, we don't really know who she is. Clearly she's someone of power, because immediately she's very demanding. Her presence on screen is so like, whoa. I was immediately like, she seems like a big problem. And I don't know at what point Joel and Ellie are going to meet her, but it's going to be a confrontation of the ages, because she has almost no emotion except for just, I have a goal in mind here and I need to figure out what to do about it. So we're not really sure who these people are, but there's a task force group of people. She's basically got somebody who is a doctor right now in this city, trapped in this jail cell, really, to interrogate and figure out, hey, we're missing a lot of people. We got to find them. I'm looking for two, Henry and Sam. Where are they? And where are these people? And where are these? And the doctor's just like, listen, I have no idea. I have no idea. But, Kathleen, like, you can't do this. And she's like, well, when it was my brother, like, what were you doing? Like, you guys didn't care back then. And look at you now. And you guys are giving up people to Fedra and the Fireflies. So we know that they're not Fedra. We know they're not Fireflies, but who are they? And this is kind of where I was trying to figure out where are the connections going? Where are we kind of going with this story into season two? In The Last of Us Part Two, there is a very a prominent group that takes place in the Washington Seattle area called the WLF, the Washington Liberation Front. Is this kind of similar to what we're seeing right now in Kansas City? Is this the Kansas City or the Kansas Liberation Front or whatever they want to kind of call themselves? Is this that version? Because we know that right now in this world, kind of there's no government, there's no rules, everything's kind of going to shit. Daniel, I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on what's going on in this moment. We're also introduced another character at this point called Perry. Perry is played by the wonderful Jeffrey Pierce, who fans of the game, eagle-eyed watchers will know that's Tommy from the game.
Yes. And he's such a wonderful actor, and he has such a great beard as well too. That of course I
He
have to
needs
commend
Manscaped
first
though.
and foremost. He uses Manscaped. He must use Manscaped. He
He
keeps
must
that
use
thing
Manscaped.
pristine. He must use it. But no. What I love so much about what we're setting up here is that we're getting, like we said, an expansion to the world that we know. So for fans of the show going into this, fans of the game, I should say, you're getting story that we haven't really gotten before, and we're learning about this. And I love that. I love that she just seems so out of her wheelhouse doing this. She's so cold and calculating, but also like it also feels like this wasn't the world that she was in. So, why can't I think of her name right now?
Kathleen?
Kathleen, yes. Like Kathleen seems so like she seems like such like a mom, you know what I mean? But also like
Yeah.
but she seems like she's kind of been thrusted into this like everyone has, right? Where it's like this is what the world is now. This is what I have to be. And that's what makes her so scary, and that's what makes her so unpredictable is that you don't know which way she's going to go. And it makes it scary because of course fans of the game know who Henry and Sam is. So if someone is looking for them, that's not good.
No, it's not. And when you talk about her, how scary she is, you start to kind of, with everybody that you meet in any situation, you kind of wonder, okay, like what is their level of humanity? What is the level of empathy that they kind of have? And while she's interrogating this doctor, maybe you're feeling like she has some empathy, like it's kind of there. She goes back outside. She kind of gets an update from Perry about how some of the people that Joel and Ellie killed have wound up dead. Obviously, they don't know that Joel and Ellie did this. They just assume like maybe it's Henry and Sam or something that have escaped.
Right.
And without even blinking, without even really acknowledging it further, she just kind of walks away, walks into the room, pulls out her gun, shoots the doctor, just kind of walks back out without saying a thing. So you immediately know at that point she doesn't give a fuck. She's gonna do
No,
whatever it
not at
She
all.
takes
means
to
business.
quote her goal. Exactly. So Anthony, I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on Kathleen and this introduction, this change up from the game. What did you think about it all?
Yeah, like I enjoyed the introduction of these new characters because right before the ambush, Ellie says, "Hey, is that the QZ?" And it's literally wide open. So you know there has been a revolt happening, especially once you get further into this episode where yeah, these guys are not Fedra, and they seem like they were under Fedra oppression. So they've kind of rised up and they've taken over the city. But there are certain people who, during Fedra control, like this doctor or maybe some other people, who have been giving information. And there is a lot at stake for, I guess, Kathleen, because her brother was, in a situation where he was held against his will and maybe killed, murdered. So there's a lot of
Yep.
like pent up aggression against people who've fucked with her in the past, and she has like a lot of that animosity. And yeah, like they're interesting characters. I think the more we learn about them, it foreshadows what we will see in the future. And I like that because it just sets in motion that each state is almost like its own country, and we don't really know what's
Yeah.
happening inside them. And it just showcases how, crazy and wild this world that we live in, or or that we are in, um, how they exist, it's just absolutely crazy. So little things like that. I do like, Perry being he looks like a mercenary to me. Like that's the first thing. He's like, okay, he plays the character right, even though shit, this is the guy who played Tommy. He does a great mercenary, and there's things that we find out later on, and we'll kind of go into them that uh, Kathleen and Perry find out that's hiding underground.
Yeah. So what is that? So we go underground. This is also around the time where they kind of discover also, where Henry and Sam have been kind of holding up. There's paintings. There's in the kids' drawing. Sorry, in this room, and they can't find him. They know that Henry and Sam are still out there somewhere. At this point, we understand that one of them is a child, probably Sam at this point, because they do mention that, hey, Henry will be he won't let Sam starve. So he's gonna try to find him food as much as he can. So we kind of know that there's some brotherly bond kind of going on here. But then you're right, Anthony, we kind of get to this point underground where Kathleen and Perry are just kind of hanging out, and she's like, I haven't told you about this, but take a look. And you just see this kind of almost like this crater in the ground, and it just starts to move. It's almost like it's breathing in a way. And
Terrifying.
it's yeah, terrifying. It's a big
Sinister.
no-no, sinister, and we don't really know what it is, and we're gonna find out soon. I'm very, very sure, and I can guarantee you, it's not gonna be like birthday cakes and clowns and something beautiful.
Aw,
It's
Shay, no
probably gonna be
spoilers,
something,
man.
probably be something horrible. I don't want to upset people, Daniel. I don't want to upset them. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I forgive you. I forgive you.
But at this point, we're also seeing, Joel and Ellie kind of seeing that they think that they're being hunted right now by these group of people, and they're going into breaking into houses and rooms and everything, and trying to find Henry and Sam. Joel and I are like, what are we gonna do? We got to find a way to get out of here. We gotta escape. And they find this. They see this building really, really far away. It's a very tall skyscraper. So they're like, cool, let's get over there. They get over there. They get inside the room. Joel breaks the glass, throws it in a bucket and pours it on the ground. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, if people step on it, I'll be able to hear them. He's like, will you be able to hear them? Will you? And it's almost like she's so snarky about it. And he's like, yes,
Yeah.
I will. And this is a great moment where, they're kind of sleeping. They're about to go to bed. And Ellie busts out one more, no pun intended, joke where you think everything's about to get serious. She's like, hey, you know, did you know that diarrhea is hereditary? And Joel's like, what? It's like, it runs in your genes. And she's dying of laughter. And Joel is trying his best to keep it in. He's holding his ground, but he breaks. He lets out a couple laughs like, it's stupid. That's dumb. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And he's laughing. He's laughing. He's trying his best. And they go to bed. And they wake up to maybe the rudest alarm that I ever could imagine. Daniel, I think when we've gone on vacation, you've woken me up like this. And I'm like, Daniel, please.
Daniel's finger gun is pretty scary.
That's
It
how
is,
he woke
right?
It
me
was
up.
in my face. Like it's in your
Yeah.
face. I don't like it.
Listen, first of all, these cameras are incredible. Like the quality
Incredible.
of it. It reminds me of like the Goodfellas, like the Rain Bracco,
Yeah.
Karen opening.
Yes,
Where it's
yes.
like, wake up, Henry. And it's funny that it's Henry, but it's actually Henry and Sam doing that to them.
Oh,
so,
that's true. It is. Yes.
yeah.
But yeah, when we went on vacation in Florida, that's what you did. You were like, Shabazz, wake up. And I'm like, Daniel, just next time, just shake me, please. I don't need
Well,
to be waking up with a gun.
that's called a Florida morning, a Florida welcome.
Florida sunrise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we asked the front desk for that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
they were
"Can you
like,
give me a
yeah.
wake up call in the morning. Yeah, do you want a Florida wake up call? You want the Florida
Yeah.
call?
Do
Like,
you want,
okay,
do you want
sure.
12 gauge or the 9-iron?
What's going to really scare me? Oh, we'll get a shotgun
Weird.
for you. Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Is that a type of drink? But yeah, so they wake up, they got guns pointed in their face, and he's like, Joel. So it's funny that he didn't wake up from the glass, or maybe
Yeah.
Henry and Sam, or these unnamed people right now are pointing guns at them. What's going to happen? And the episode cuts right there. That's a beautiful place, I think, to end this episode. I couldn't have thought of a better way to end it without going too far. Great cut. Oh, what do you guys think about this ending, Anthony? Please, what did you think when it ended right there?
Well, yeah, there's a lot that transpires to get to that point, and I think I just want to go back to a scene where Joel and Ellie have a conversation, and it's the first time we see Joel try to be a father figure to her and console her in terms of what she has experienced up to this point, and it's not fair that you had to go through all this. And he finally gives her the gun. The gun, that secret gun is now her gun, and
It's her gun.
he teaches her how to like cock it, how to do all these things. These are things that you should be aware of, which just builds that father daughter moment, that chemistry between the two, because they will
That
eventually
trust, right?
that
It's
build that trust.
trust.
Yeah, they'll eventually have some sort of relationship other than, yeah, I'm just transporting cargo. Um, but yeah, Henry and Sam sneaking up on them is very, very similar to the game. It's interesting with the whole ear thing because that's something new. I don't think that was in the game beforehand. And you can clearly see Joel has issues when mentioning or people mention that to him. He knows that he has a weakness and he's trying to be so strong. And when you showcase weakness, you don't want to, you don't want that to be
The
the
defining
thing,
thing of you.
the defining thing, or the thing people know that you have, because then they'll look at you different. So I could clearly see
Right.
how Joel tries to hide it. But yeah, it ends really well. This is a great. If you're watching this, this is going to be a two-parter type of story, right? Just like the first two episodes, and then we kind of broke off with the Bill's story. So this is good to have like a two-parter, and then we kind of go into whatever comes next. But
Mhm.
there are a lot of things that you'll learn, like Joel. You learn about Joel's age, even if you weren't paying attention. He's 56.
Yep.
You understand that he's trying so hard to not fall in love with Ellie. And that's the one thing you get a lot from. It's like he's trying to not have this father daughter.
Open himself up to her,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
he doesn't want
100%.
that because he knows he's had a situation in the past that's hurt him, so he doesn't want to bring Ellie into this fold. So there's little things like that that you see, and yeah, the ending is really good, especially Sam holding the gun on Joel, and he's just doing, and you'll learn why he does,
Yeah.
which is also new.
Are you doing like a blue steel there, man?
Yeah,
Just
you
like
you're doing a lot more of like like a
Oh,
little
was
bit more
I?
of that.
Ooh.
Yeah. You're like, ooh,
Ooh.
be
But yeah,
quiet.
no, really, really good ending, really good episode. I love, like, it's just a lot of character building, a lot of
yes.
just building the environment that we are in, explaining why things have happened, explaining things that, and just with a couple of sentences, with a couple of words, just so people know, okay, now I know why maybe those tanks are around, or why Fedra was a bad group of people. Like there's
Right.
little
Of what
things
they
like
were
Yeah,
that to
doing, yeah.
just build the story.
absolutely. Daniel, what about yourself? What are your thoughts on this entire episode here?
This is another amazing episode, and I think this episode will only feel stronger, I think, in the grand scheme of this whole season. It's hard to top the first 3 episodes of the show so far. Not to say this episode's bad in any way, because this episode's still phenomenal, but this is more of an episode. It's like, okay, let's take a quick breather now. Let's establish what's about to come. Let's kind of think about what's happened so far, and then we're going to put the pedal to the metal. Literally, we get that scene where they drive through the man in Kansas City, but there is a lot of story to come still, and I think this episode, in the grander scheme of the season, is going to be that episode. Like we said, we're going to look back and be like, this is the moment, this was the shifts, this is what sets and laid the groundwork for what is to come later this season. So I'm very much looking forward to talking about next week's episode.
Absolutely. There's a lot that this episode was able to do. It was able to give us a lot more about Joel and break down his exterior, not only to us but just to Ellie as well. And I think this episode did a phenomenal job of just building up that world and setting up the breadcrumbs for what's to come in the later parts of this season, but also what can come for the rest of this show in terms of its next season or whatever they do. And I really loved it. I love where this show is going. I do want to give a huge shout out quickly to our friends over at Crave and HBO for providing us with this show, because without them we wouldn't be able to give you these amazing breakdowns. I say amazing because you know what they are. Let's be honest here. These amazing breakdowns right when these episodes are done airing. And you can come here and listen to our thoughts because we love the show, we love this game, and we can't wait to talk more and more about it. If you're loving this show as well, join our Discord. We have a great channel in there talking about the spoilers, talking all about, what people's theories are and thoughts. And we're having a great community in there. So shout out to everyone from that Discord community that's listening right now, because you guys keep the lights on in our hearts, I would say.
It's a good way
Thank
of
you.
putting it. I like that. I
Yeah.
like that.
Again, you can follow us at the Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. You can make sure you're following us as well, Daniel, Anthony, Shahbaz. You can see our links to our personal accounts and everything, our bank account statements, whatever you want to see, all down there below in the links. And you can make sure you're listening to us every single Monday, and throughout the week we'll drop our interviews, reviews, whatever you have it. There's so many good things coming out. Daniel already kind of alluded to something coming out in the future, but man, oh man, I just, yeah, there's go. The clicker's back. Clicker's back again. So we'll keep it at that. Again, that was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.